Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to PhotoBiz Live. This is Joanne from the PhotoBiz team, and today we're being joined by our own Andy for a webinar about improving your SEO ranking and conversion rates. If you put hours of your time into your search engine optimization, but how can you tell if it's working? In this webinar, Andy will show you how to measure the effectiveness of your online marketing with Google Analytics and also how to identify areas for improvement. In addition to getting the opportunity to learn from Andy in today's webinar, we'll also have a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. You may submit your questions using the chat tool, and they'll be answered after the presentation. You can also join in the discussion on Twitter by using the hashtag #PhotobizLive. If at any point during today's webinar you have any difficulty hearing the speaker or seeing the slides, please use the comment box to let us know. We'll also be recording this webinar, and it will be available for replay on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/photobiz. With that being said, I'll turn things over to Andy.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Andy. As Joanne said, if you have any problems viewing the webinar, please just type it into the comment box and let us know. If at any point I'm going a bit too fast for you, you can also just send me a polite slow down, and I will do my best to accommodate. I have to apologize today. The webinar is going to be very text heavy, and I'm going to do my best to ensure we have plenty of time for your questions at the end. Please bear in mind, most of this information is going to be very general. If you have specific questions, we have our SEO specialist in our PhotoBiz support team, and they are more than happy to help. So with that being said, let's get going. What we're going to cover today, the very first thing we're going to start out with is the jargon of SEO. We're going to be looking at some phrases and some acronyms that are often used in SEO just to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about. Next, we're going to look at how to measure your success, because there are more ways to measure your success than simply how well you rank. After that, we'll look at putting the numbers to it, how to actually read those reports, and then we'll look at, we will wrap up with what next. All right, so first we're going to start here. And we're going to look at some common SEO acronyms. Obviously, acronyms are just abbreviations for longer phrases. The very first one we're going to look at today is CTR, which is your click-through rate. What your click-through rate is, it's a comparison of the number of times your website was seen in a search compared to the number of people who actually clicked on your link. The next one we have is SERP, or SERP. This is your search engine results page. This most commonly refers to the first page of a Google search, but it actually applies to all 20 pages that are indexed. ROI, this is not an SEO specific one, but this is kind of a marketing one. It's return on investment. We're going to look a little bit further into that later as to what ROI really means. Next we have PPC. This may also be shown as CPC, but it means the same thing, and it's pay per click or cost per click. And these refer to paid advertisements on Google, Bing, or Yahoo. The final one I just kind of threw in here, you may see CPM, which is actually cost per thousand. In this one we use the Roman numeral M to designate the number 1,000, and this is something you will see when you are purchasing ads on generally Google or Bing, and it shows you the expected cost for 1,000 impressions of your ad. Next, we have a couple of comparisons here. All right, the first one is the most basic. It's organic versus paid. Now, when you are viewing your search traffic in analytics, you'll notice that there is a broad category of search, and that then breaks down into organic versus paid. An organic search result is anything that is not a paid advertisement in, again, Google or Bing. Paid is what it says on the tin. These are ads, or these are rather traffic that resulted from an ad that you paid for to appear on a search engine page. Obviously, organic is considered to be better because you're not spending money for it, whereas paid search traffic is a great way to boost your traffic in a competitive market until you've built up your website to be on that first page. Okay, the next one is quality versus quantity. And these two phrases are how we measure traffic to your website. Ideally, you want high numbers of both. Quality traffic refers to visitors to your website who are interested in your company and the services that you provide. Quantity traffic is simply high numbers of traffic. Given the choice, you should always want quality traffic over quantity traffic because that is where your sales are going to come from. Now, a little bit later, we will take a look at how to tell the difference and how to convert quantity traffic into quality traffic. All right, the final comparison we have today is two things that you may see in your analytics report. Parentheses not provided and parentheses not set. Now, these will always show up in your search traffic. Not provided indicates that while someone arrived at your website through searching for it, they were using what is referred to as a safe search. There are three broad ways to do this. The first is to be signed in to a Google account, which is an @Gmail, or if you have Google Apps set up, signed into that account. The second way is using one of the newer safe browsers. Firefox version 20 and beyond do not provide the keywords that you use to search with. And the third way is using secure socket layer searching. This one takes a little bit of knowledge, but rather than using HTTP, you would use HTTPS when going to Google. And what this does is it locks the information you use to search from the websites that you're visiting. Now, this is quite an annoyance when you're trying to look at your keywords. However, Google has come out and stated that because they are also one of the service providers that generates not provided, there is no way to gather that data. Now, in most cases, this will likely be your number one or your number two search term. And as Google said, there's no way to get that information, so it's something we have to deal with. Now, if you see not set, on the other hand, this is something we can actually fix. A not set only shows up when you're running a campaign or an AdWords ad, and you have not given that campaign or that ad a specific URL. So if you create your ad and you send it to, say, photobiz.com, and someone clicks on that ad, that will show up as they visited you from a search engine, but how they got there was not set. So in cases like this, you would use a URL such as photobiz.com/AdWords. And that would tell us that our AdWords campaign sent this traffic. Now, obviously, this is more useful when you're running multiple ad campaigns, and it can show you which of your ad campaigns has been successful and which is costing you money but not generating money. Moving right along, let's look at what is success. Now, obviously, success is going to vary with who you are and what your goals are. So there's no measure for success that's going to apply to every website at every time. So how do we then measure this? Well, the three most common factors people use are ranking, traffic, and conversions. Ranking obviously is the most simple, as I said at the beginning. This is simply where your website appears numerically in a search for your keyword terms. Like I say, this is one of the easiest to measure. It can also be one of the most difficult to improve because there are a lot of factors that go into where you rank, both what you're doing and what your competition is doing. We can also set traffic goals. Now, this can be as broad or as targeted as you like, but it relates to the number of visitors to your website. Now, this can be, you can look at percentages. You can set a goal of having 50% of your traffic be search engine traffic. You can also set specific number goals. Last month we had 200 visitors. This month our goal is 300 visitors. To actually determine how well you're doing with traffic, you do have to have some sort of a visit counter. Now, PhotoBiz recommends Google Analytics. We designed our websites to work with Google Analytics. It's a free service, it's run by Google, and we don't really find any downsides to using analytics. The final measure of success is your conversion rate. A conversion is set by you, the site owner, and it can vary. It's the percentage of a time a visitor to your website takes some action. Now, if you are an online store, this is a very easy metric to measure. You simply take the number of sales you had this month and divide that by the number of people. And that will tell you what your conversion percentage was. Now, obviously, if you're a photographer and your online store is primarily for people who have already had a session with you, that's not a metric that's going to work very well. So other alternates can be, how did they stay on your site for more than 2 minutes? Did they fill out your contact form? Did they click on a specific link to get to a certain page? All of these things can count as conversions if these are the things that make you money. Now, conversions are generally the hardest metric to track because you have to be able to correlate your traffic and whatever metric you set as that conversion goal. Like we said, going over it again a bit, ranking. You don't need anything to check your metrics. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't need an app. You Google it. You pick your search term, you type it in, you find yourself. Now, this is your most visible metric. Google is a verb now for a reason. You can focus on one or more sets of keywords. You can compare your ranking for Palm Beach baby photographer and Palm Beach newborn photographer. Or you can pick something very specific, Syracuse Indian wedding photographer. However, the problem with only focusing on your ranking is this can be very deceptive. If your site is the #1 ranking website for Western North Carolina vintage wedding photographer, it's great that you're the #1 spot, but if no one has ever searched that term, being #1 has provided zero benefit to your website. So while your ranking is important, we always want to compare how you rank with that keyword's traffic that's driving to your website. Okay, so as we said next, traffic. Traffic we can apply a number to if we have a visit counter set up. Mentioned before, analytics, it's free, it's easy to use, and you have knowledge base and webinars that will show you how to set everything up. Now, this will show you the actual traffic to your website. Now, if you visit your website a lot, you can filter yourself out. You can filter out people from PhotoBiz. You can even set filters that say, if someone visits my website from Facebook, don't show me them as traffic. I would never recommend that you do that, but it is possible. This will, using analytics specifically, will allow you to break down your traffic into traffic sources. Now, your traffic sources fall into 4 broad categories. You have direct traffic, you have referral traffic, you have search traffic, and you have campaign traffic. Now, campaign traffic is a combination of referral and search traffic, depending on what type of a campaign you are running, but it's listed as a separate category so that you can track your specific campaigns as separate from general searching. Okay, now conversions. You're going to need a visit counter and a pen and paper because you're going to have to combine your sales or the number of contact forms you've had with the visitors to your website. Okay, as we mentioned before, what counts as your conversion is going to vary from customer to customer. If you sell stock images or stock, then you will definitely be able to very easily compare how much money you've made per transaction to the number of people visiting your website. Photographers in other niche markets can have some difficulty here because the contact form is more your sales lead and you tend to close in person. Now, your conversion rate is a good indicator of the quality of your traffic. If you have a lot of people coming to your website, but nobody's filling out the contact form and nobody's calling you, then you're seeing quantity traffic. They're coming to you, but they're not buying. And we need to look at that. That's a good question to ask yourself. And one of the downsides of conversion rate tracking is it can take time, collating all of the information into one area and then looking at the numbers. Now, this can be one of those things that is very much worth your time if it is going to be something beneficial. Okay, I had a question here very quickly about bounce rates. I just want to discuss this very quickly. A bounce is someone who only visits one page of your website. Now, this metric can be off, especially using the Flash websites from PhotoBiz. Google reads our Flash websites just fine. It indexes them just fine. We've got many, many Flash websites that are #1 ranked. However, the bounce rate can be off, especially if you're not using a splash intro page. Generally, a bounce rate, or your bounce rate shows, again, the quality of your traffic. If most people who visit your website immediately leave, then you are not what they are looking for. Let's take a look at our referral traffic, or rather our traffic types. Okay, direct traffic means that they typed in your URL or they have your website bookmarked. Now, generally, you as your site's owner tend to skew this metric higher because you are the one going directly to your website. Oh, sorry, went ahead accidentally. Okay, now direct traffic can be very good because it means that the people coming to your website are coming there specifically because it is your website and there is some content that they want to see there. Now, if most of your traffic is direct traffic, then we have to ask, well, why are they typing it in or bookmarking it rather than clicking a link that you should have out? Okay, which brings me to referral traffic. This is traffic where the visitor clicked a link. Now, it doesn't matter where that link is. This can be a Facebook post. It can be someone else's Facebook post. It can be a link on a blog. It can be a link in an email. Now, if you have a campaign set up, that email link will probably show up there, but you may notice when you look at your referral traffic, you'll see email referrals have a very different referral structure because it will include something like m.yahoomail.com or m.gmail.com. Those two are specific if they've opened their email in their phone, but it will say mail in that referral link. That's generally the best way to know that that was an email. It can be one that you sent out. It can be an email that one of your clients sent to their friend to show them your website. Okay, search traffic, exactly like it says on the tin. They used a search engine. Now, analytics covers Yahoo, Bing, Google, MSN, Ask. Just about every major search engine is covered. Now, you also have the option of including other search engines. I find very little use for this because the majority of alternate search engines are very specific to a niche market, and if you're in that niche, you're aware of them. Okay, and again, campaigns, they're a subset of the search and referral categories. It's something that you have told analytics that you are running this as an active campaign. And these are just, this simply breaks it down into if you ran an email campaign, you don't want them showing up in your referrals, you want them segregated out to your campaign. Same thing for search. Okay, direct traffic, probably the most difficult to increase. It's much, much easier for a person to click on a link or to find you in a search than to convince them to type your URL in, especially if you're not there with them. How often has someone told you what their business name is, given you their website, and by the time you get home to check it, you've completely forgotten what their website was? Hopefully you remembered their name, typed it into Google, found their website anyway, but that's the thing to bear in mind. It's pretty hard to increase your direct traffic. A high percentage of your total traffic can indicate poor growth. If 60+% of your traffic is direct traffic, then these are people who are typing in your website. They're not hearing about you from other sources, but it does indicate that they came to find you. So it's not necessarily an entirely bad thing. Shows you having good engagement. All right, direct traffic generally is high quality traffic because, as I've said multiple times today, they are trying to come to your website to find you. Now, referral traffic. Referral traffic, as we said, can cover email, social media, links in text, blog post from friends. Referral traffic is a great way to measure your social media success. Facebook will show up as either Facebook or m.Facebook. Again, anytime you see m. a domain name, we're referring to mobile. Wikipedia does this, Facebook does this, and that's just a good way to tell, well, am I being found by people using their computer, or am I found by people using their phone? Same thing for Twitter. And that's what it will say. It won't tell you which post sent them, but it will tell you that they came from a social media website. If you're doing a big social media push, you should be seeing your referral percentages jump because, again, that's where all of that is carried. Okay, your referral traffic is not necessarily a guarantee of good quality. You can still be seen by people who have no business on your website doing social media promotions, doing email promotions. You can even get links from other websites that are sending you traffic that really, they clicked on a link because they love the blog that you were featured on, even though they have no intention of hiring your services. Maybe they just wanted to see the pretty pictures. Now, because Facebook uses an algorithm that on the face is very similar to Google's, it trends better. Your referral traffic tends to be people who at least know what they're getting into if they're not entirely certain that they want to hire your services. But as always, there are no guarantees here. Okay, search traffic. Two large areas here, paid traffic and organic traffic. Paid traffic means that you have spent money to get their traffic. When you're using Google, there are now 3 areas where ads can display. Almost everybody's very familiar with the top placement, where the background is a light yellow almost into a peach, and then it appears directly above the #1 result. Now they've added in the right column, which can also show ads, and there's a section at the bottom underneath the 10th result that will also show an ad. Now, it won't specify which of these 3 areas your ad appeared in or was clicked from, but that's something, if you've set up an AdWords campaign, you have bid on those areas. Organic traffic simply means that they typed something into a search, your website showed up on that list, and they clicked on your link. Organic traffic is how well you're ranking. So if you rank really well for search terms, but have very little search traffic, it means that your search terms are not things that are being used by consumers. And this can happen a lot. It's happening less now because Google has updated and upgraded their algorithm to the point where photography in Greensboro and Greensboro photography generate roughly the same results because they're often the same. Somebody searching for that is searching for a photographer who works in Greensboro. Now, you will find some areas of the country this is different, and there is a wonderful tool. Google offers it for free. It's called the Keyword Planner, and that is something that it will help you with. It's a little bit too in-depth to get into today, but it is very easy to use, and it's quite fun. I've found myself getting sucked in there for a couple of hours playing around, changing variables around. It's got a nice graphic interface. Anyway, if you have questions on that, we'll try and touch it at the very end. Okay, search traffic, however, has no guarantee of quality. In fact, this is one of the most common complaints from, and I guess these are good complaints to have, from high-ranking photographers, especially those on the higher spectrum of the cost range. Just because you rank #1 for Washington wedding photography doesn't mean that the people searching for this are able to afford you. So finding the magic combination of the right search term with the right clientele can take a while, and you may never find the perfect one. You may always be getting contacts from people who want to pay $200 for 10 hours of wedding coverage, and $200 doesn't get you out of bed in the morning. So while people do focus a lot on search traffic, it's not, a number one ranking is not money in the bank. It is simply the number one ranking. So there are no perfect traffic metrics. The one thing I always try to explain to people is that what works for one website doesn't work for another website. What works for one industry doesn't work for another industry. And a lot of this plays into how people purchase your products. If you sell a physical product, you don't ever have to physically interact with your customers. Simply having a good price and a good ranking is all you need to ensure sales. On the other hand, if you're a niche market, if you provide a specialty service such as photography, it really matters who these people are. Are they going to be worth your time and money? Are they willing to pay your prices? Do they understand why your pricing is the way it's done? Okay, I know I said at the very beginning we would talk more about ROI, and here is something that is not often taken into consideration. Okay, ROI is the return on your investment, but your investment is not just how much money you paid today. It's how much time you spent. Every hour you spend working on your ranking, you spend working on your social media networking, is an hour that you weren't editing those photos. It's an hour that you weren't spending with your family. So always bear in mind, how much effort did I have to put out compared to how much return did I get? So let's say you've decided that we're going to work on social networking today, and you've started spending about 10 hours a week on Facebook, on Twitter, improving your impressions, driving the point home that you are the best photographer in your area, and you've only seen a 10% increase in your traffic and your contacts. It's time to ask yourself, is 10 hours a week worth an extra 10 people? Well, if you're a wedding photographer and those 10 extra people, 5 of them booked with you, maybe that's definitely worth your time because you've spent 10 hours to get 5 bookings. On the other hand, if you're spending 10 hours a week and you're not getting any more bookings, it's time to look at it. And it's okay to be wrong. As long as you always approach your online presence from the standpoint of, I am going to provide something to the internet, you're not going to get penalized. You may not succeed, but you haven't gone backwards. If it brings traffic, but not sales, again, this is the same thought. Is it worth it? You paid to have that number one, you paid to have that ad, and yes, it's bringing in the traffic, but all the traffic it's bringing in, they don't want to pay your rates. Well, you've put out a lot of money. Yeah, you've upped your traffic, but again, no sales. Okay, your SERP rank, it's a number. It's nothing more than that. And it's not even a guaranteed number. I've seen websites swing 3 pages after a Google algorithm update. Nothing on this website changed. Nothing this website did was against the rules. And still, the algorithm updated. Their site dropped from page 1 to page 5. We waited for 3 days. The algorithm finished its update. They were right back where they were on page 1. It's just a number. Luck, as annoying as this is to say for somebody who does SEO, luck is a factor. Having your post go viral is one of the greatest ways to improve your traffic, but you can't guarantee viral web content. Nobody knows what's going to take off. Will you be that lucky 0.1% where one of your photos catches someone's eye, especially someone famous's eye, and then it gets shared all over the world, and suddenly your site is drowning in traffic? Probably not, because there's 0.1% of people who get to be that big. Similarly, If you and your competitor have both decided to do a major SEO update at the same time, you may not see your ranking change. Behind the scenes, your site does rank better. Unfortunately, so does everyone else's. So if everyone in your area is stepping up their game at the same time, you may not see those improvements. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that none of us will ever know, because that's how Google protects their algorithm. So it's a hard thing to keep in mind, but sometimes it simply doesn't work. Okay, now that slide was a bit of a downer. So there are always things you can do. The whole point of finding these numbers, of checking these metrics, is to find out what's working and what isn't. It's going to help you focus, because you physically don't have time to do all of this. You know, there are only 24 hours in a day, and you have to work, you have to sleep, you want to do some SEO, you want to do some social networking. Now, some people have assistants for that, and that's great for them, but not everybody does. So, push your strengths and cover your weaknesses. If you have a lot of direct traffic to your website and almost no referral traffic and almost no search traffic, well, take a look at your customers and ask them to help you. You know, email all of your current clients and say, hey guys, I noticed you keep, I noticed everybody's coming into the website, and I love that you guys keep coming back to check on things. Next time, how about you send a friend? Make it into a contest. Have those 50 people who come to your website every other day run a contest. The person who sends the most referrals to your website gets a prize. Doesn't have to be a big prize. Doesn't even have to be something that you spend money on. It can be an extra retouching at their next session. They don't really know how much an extra retouch costs. You do. If it takes you 15 minutes but triples your traffic, very much worth it. Okay, as I've told people, there are no new ideas in SEO. That's not true exactly. There are some revolutionary ideas, but they don't come around that often. One of the best ways to improve your SEO, find out what your competition's doing. Find out what that #1 site's doing. And I don't just mean go to their website. I mean go to their website, read their blog, check their social networking profiles, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Find out what they are doing. They're successful for a reason, and there is nothing that says you can't copy what they've done. If you use a PC, almost every browser, if you press Control and U, is going to open the page source of a website. Now, you're going to see a lot of code. You're probably not going to be able to read most of it, but that's okay. The information we're looking for is going to be at the very top, and it will be labeled meta. So if you're confused, you're not certain what keywords are working for your area, find the #1 site, find your competition, look at their page source, look at what they use for their keywords. Now, you can copy them exactly. There's nothing that says you can't do that. Now, obviously, I would not include their name or their business name, because you don't want to misrepresent yourself. But look at the phrasing they use in their keywords. Are they using photography, photographer, or photographers? Did they use Pennsylvania? Did they use Pittsburgh? Or did they use mainline? So it's not, there's nothing that says you can't copy what other people are doing. And it's a good idea. Most search engine industry websites are simply collections of blog posts and articles written by SEOs about what has worked for them. As an industry, even though we compete with each other, we also share our ideas, because good ideas make for good SEO, and they make for better websites. Okay, it is a numbers game. The reason we use cost per thousand is that the click-through rate is so low on so many search terms. The more general a search term is, the lower the click-through rate is going to be. If you type photography into Google, the number one result is going to be a Wikipedia page, because that's something that is a very broad term, and someone searching for just photography is probably looking for information about photography, not how to hire a photographer. So the longer your keywords are, and this is something that can throw you. When we talk about keywords, we're not talking about single words. We're generally talking about a 2 to 5 word phrase. And just whenever you find yourself searching for something on Google, think about what you typed in to find that website, and did you find it? Did you find what you were looking for immediately, or did you have to refine your search? Once you've got that in mind, take a look at your keywords. You know, are the keywords that you are using for your website something that a person would type in? Or do you simply have a list of single words that you're hoping some combination of works? Ask or pay for help. PhotoBiz provides free SEO consultations with our specialist. We offer an SEO Bootcamp, which is a more intensive one-on-one session with me about your website specifically. There are plenty of legitimate SEO companies that can do wonders for your website. However, they tend to cost. And by that, I mean upwards of $800 at a minimum. And quite often they'll have a contract. You entrust your website to them for, say, 6 months. You pay them a monthly fee, and you agree that you're not going to make any changes that they haven't recommended for 6 months. Now, finding a good SEO is going to be based around what they try to sell you. Generally, if what they're selling you sounds too good to be true, it is. In fact, one of the most recent updates targeted websites and people who did that for websites. It was called an over-optimization penalty. Google realized that the websites that were showing up high in their searches were not providing good content. They were simply targeted to check all the boxes that the search engine checked for. So Google's update roughly said, well, if you tick all the boxes, but you have very little content, then you don't need to be at the top. However, if you only tick half the boxes, but you have a well-built website that's easy to use and provides information, then you should be at the top, because that's what people want. The driving goal behind Google is to provide their customers, which is the searchers, with content quickly and reliably. That's why Google's number one, because they do it well. Now, we're at the Q&A slide. However, I have watched our questions tick up. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go through the questions I've already received. Okay, question from early. Google prefers HTML websites. Well, that was true for a very long time. However, that hasn't been true since 2009. In 2009, Google announced that they would start indexing Flash websites just like they index HTML. There's an entire set of guidelines for how a webmaster presents Flash content to be indexed by Google. Obviously, this is something that PhotoBiz takes care of, not something you need to worry about. So, if you've got a Flash website, you don't have to upgrade. It's fine. It will continue to work just as well as it has. Now, if you've heard about HTML5, it's the newest thing on the block. The biggest advantage it provides is a consistent look across any device. Now, this may result in better traffic because you have more people hitting you on a tablet or on a phone, but the nature of how the sites are created doesn't, well, in the case of PhotoBiz, doesn't make a difference. Okay, had a question about my opinion on companies like Logical Positions who charge for AdWords upkeep and promise better conversion rates. As I said on that second to last slide, If they are a legitimate company, they can be very worth the money. Generally, in a case like this where they're monitoring and upkeeping your AdWords, what they are looking at is how to write your AdWords ad to ensure that people want to click on it. Generally, they'll also focus on making sure that you're competing for the right terms. If anyone's not familiar with AdWords, you actually specify which keywords and even down to the time of day and geographic location of the searcher that you want to compete on. And it's a roughly a silent auction. You say, I am willing to pay up to this amount of money for this ad. And if you're the highest bidder, that's what you pay on those ads. It is obviously a little bit more complicated than that, but again, I don't have that much time today. Okay, now had a more of a comment than a question. If you have direct entry, but you're also seeing good sales, yes, that is definitely an indicator of good quality traffic. It means they're coming back because they really like what you're doing. Okay, another question. If you're an influencer on LinkedIn, should you be putting your website URL into every post? Personally, I advise against this for one main reason. It looks like spam. When you're constantly pushing your own URL in every post, you start to enter the static. You know, if every post has this URL in it, I personally am going to stop paying attention. I might even hide you, or I might disconnect from you. LinkedIn especially, because it's such a business-based website, you want to avoid being seen as a spammer. Okay, great question here. Are building backlinks still an easy way of improving your SEO? Easy? No. Unfortunately, backlinking, or a backlink is one website linking to another. Now, unfortunately, this was very, very heavily abused using link farms, and is now, it's somewhat of a minefield. If someone asks you to pay for a link, you may have seen these ads before. Pay $19 and get 500 links in 8 hours. That sounds really great, and it's the best way to have your site disappear from Google. The reason behind this is when someone is selling you a large 500 links, what they're actually doing is they're going to websites where the entire content of the website is just links to other pages. Now, this is separate from, say, a directory listing. You know, a directory listing is sorted by profession or by some category, and you know that directory somewhere you can go to find somebody either in your area, in your price range. These are pages, a Google search on an image search of link farm will show you what they look like. It's literally just a long roll of links with a keyword associated. And part of the problem is when one website links to another website, it passes the link juice. I really wish I was making that up. That is the technical term. It passes the link juice, which is a portion of its rank is copied to the website it linked to. This is generally a positive. You know, your site has, say, a 90. You link to your friend's website. Your friend gets 10% of that. His 50 is now a 59. Works the same with link farms, except they've got a negative number, negative 200, negative 1,000. So your link, that link on this link farm is suddenly toxic to every other website. So it's not an easy way, but if your links have a reason, then yes, you should always try to build those links. But there needs to be a reason why that link exists. So again, we'll cite photography here. You want to link to other photographers who are not your direct competition. So if they're lower or higher price range, you can link to them. If it's a photographer you know who is not your competition because he's not in the same area, again, great link there. And these are good links because you're both photographers and you're both in the same industry. Now the other option is people who provide similar services but not direct competition. So if you're a wedding photographer, linking to florists, to caterers, and having them link back to you, this is where you're going to get the benefit. These are services that you provide these are services that you do not provide, but someone who is going to purchase your service will likely also need this service. Anytime, especially for photographers, anytime your images are used on someone else's blog or website, get a link credit. Get the photography credit. It doesn't have to be a page. It just has to be a link that says photographs or images provided by, usually would have your business name and then a link. That is a great way to establish authority on the subject. If people are talking about the wonderful weddings they've been to and the images come from you and are linked to your website, that establishes you as a wedding photographer. Now, obviously, if you're featured by a magazine, the bigger the better, as long as there's a link. A friend of mine was featured by AOL Real Estate, and his website went from, on the term real estate photography, went from about page 12 to being a first page result worldwide. But he got a link from AOL Real Estate, which is a very large authoritative website. Now, if he had been linked to from North Carolina Real Estate magazine, he would still see an improvement, but not the kind of worldwide improvement he got from AOL. Now, that's also changed slightly because of the way Google ranks, but the theory is still good, in that the larger the website you link to, the better it is. Keystroke. Oh, the keystroke to find the meta information. On a PC, it's Control-U. I'm sorry, I don't know the shortcut for a Mac. However, it's generally under the file, and it's listed as View Source or View Page Source. As Joanne points out, if you're using Safari, it will be under the Develop or Developer menu. Okay, everything I've read says that you have to have a blog to improve your SEO. Okay, having a blog does not improve your SEO. That is the biggest misconception out there right now. What the SEO Boost a blog provides is that whenever you make a new post to your blog, all of your previous posts are still maintained in an archive. And when Google crawls your website, it takes a quick second to look at the archive. It says, I've already seen those, I know what's there. And then it views your newer posts. Now, the reason this is important is Google treats content as authority. So if you have a blog that has one post a week about wedding photography, you have a large amount of content about wedding photography. You are establishing yourself as an authority on the subject. Like many other things online, if nobody reads it, it still doesn't matter. If you can have a wonderful blog, you can post every day of the week, but if nobody reads your blog, Google looks at it and says, well, yes, you have wonderful content, but you have no engagement. So having a blog can boost your SEO, but it's all about writing posts that get engagement. People need to be coming back to read your posts. They need to be commenting. They need to be sharing them. Now, it can be very difficult to get this started, and you may find one of the best ways to get traffic to your blog is by commenting on other blogs. Now, almost every blog has what's called a no-follow, meaning that if you leave a comment on someone else's blog with a link to your website, even if someone clicks on that link, you don't get a boost to your website because the original blog has said, don't give credit to these links. So, but the goal there is to get the eyes on your page, and your content is good enough that they then want to come back. Okay, so social media improves your SEO in two ways. It drives traffic to your website. You know, we looked at that, your referral traffic coming from your social media. Now, I also talked about, I made a brief mention of the Facebook algorithm. It's called your EdgeRank. It's their version of Google's PageRank. Now, Google has told us that EdgeRank plays a factor in PageRank. Part of the problem with this is EdgeRank is very volatile. When you're on Facebook and you're managing your business page, you can see your impressions, and it shows the number of people your post reached. If you go a week without making a post, your impressions are going to take a nosedive. Now, you can build that back up, but if you're not consistently active on social media, your EdgeRank falls and your PageRank falls with it. So social media, in terms of SEO, it can provide a boost, but it's what is considered a short-term boost. It's something that you have to actively manage in order for it to continue to benefit you. If you stop posting on Facebook, your website's going to slide down the rankings if that was the only reason it was high. Okay, the final bit of that question was, how does the PhotoBiz blog work in your favor compared to other blog sites like WordPress? Technically, it doesn't, because all blogs are built the same way. They create an archive of content. Now, obviously, I prefer the PhotoBiz blog to a WordPress blog because I find it easier to use, but then again, I work here. Okay, let's see. Got a question here. If you have a PhotoBiz website and want to add on analytics but didn't do it early on, is it difficult? It is not difficult at all. You can add analytics at any time. Depending on the type of website you have with us, it's going to depend where it goes. Generally, it's under the settings, under visit counter. If you have an HTML5 site, you will only need your UA number, which is the number that tells Google where to send the information. If you have a Flash or an HTML site or one of our content sites, you will need the full code. We do have knowledge-based articles that will help you. You can also give a call in to Passionate Support, and they will walk you through it step by step. I had a question here. How much does it cost to have a one-on-one meeting with you to look over the SEO on my business site? Well, to have a one-on-one consultation with one of our SEO specialists is free. All you have to commit is the amount of time it takes them to look over your website. The SEO Bootcamp is a one-time fee of $350, and that gets you 4 hours of my time. We break the 4 hours down into 1 hour sessions. You're allowed to use those how you would like them, and we have set topics that we cover. You're always free to say, I know enough about that, let's not do that, and spend more time on something else. But we do try to stick roughly to the schedule. So short answer, either $0 or $350, depending on which you prefer. Oh, okay. Had a great question here. White hat versus black hat. This is something that I often forget to cover. This actually comes from the old Spy versus Spy cartoons. White hat is the good guy. Black hat is the bad guy. Now, it's easier to define white hat and what it's not. It's not black hat. So what's black hat? Black hat is one of two things. It either directly violates the guidelines provided in Webmaster Tools. There are specific guidelines here. Or it's something that's not specifically against the rules, but the intent is to manipulate the search engine rankings manipulate it with the intent of gaming the system. So if you do something, if somebody approaches you and says, I can guarantee that you're going to be the #1 rank here, and all I have to do is create 700 links to your website. Well, that's a black hat, because link farming is against the rules. Now, if someone's developed a brand new system that makes it appear that your site has great traffic and engagement without real people doing that, well, that's not specifically against the rules, but you are trying to artificially manipulate the ranking. It's going to work for a while. Google will catch it because they've always caught these things, and then your website will disappear. Now, generally, they do what's called a de-index, and what that means is you will never be found in Google. If you're not in the index, even if someone types your domain name directly in there, you won't show up. Now, obviously, that's something that you have to work really hard at doing the wrong thing to happen to you. So it's not something that this shouldn't be at the front of your mind. It's just something that can happen if you try to game the system. Okay, got a great question here. Where can I find help on how to construct my keywords for the overall page in comparison to keywords for the individual pages? Okay, generally on your global, it's listed under search engines or metas, depending on which version of our product you have. This needs to apply to everything on your website. Your keywords here are going to cover just about everything you do on your site. The page-specific keywords, generally what you're going to do is you're going to take your main list and you're going to segment out what applies to each page. And you don't want to cross-contaminate here. So there's not really a specific tool. What you want to do is you want to have roughly 7 to 15 keywords on every page. But you want to avoid duplication, and you want to avoid putting keywords on inappropriate pages. If you do weddings and boudoir, you don't want the word family portrait to appear in your website. Likewise, your boudoir gallery would not have engagement photo shoot in its keywords. Now, like I said, the keyword planner with Google AdWords is a great way to find out what people are actually searching for, and that can help you generate a large list for your global area, which you then cut down for your page specifics. Oh, okay, another kind of a technical here. When entering your meta terms, what should you separate the words with? The only punctuation that should ever appear in your meta keywords is a comma. You type in a phrase, you put a comma, you put a space, you type in your next phrase. Don't use apostrophes, don't use asterisks, don't put your telephone number in. Just put words and commas. Now, the only place you don't put a comma is after the very last keyword. You don't want a hanging comma. It's not a big thing. It's generally accounted for, but it's just something to bear in mind because it's the proper format. Great little tidbit here. Right-click on browser window works for page source on a Mac. So if you've got either a 2-button mouse for your Mac or if you have enabled right-click on your magic mouse, you can right-click on a page and view the source. Okay, the number of word limitations. 7 to 15 is purely a guideline. Keyword spamming is something you can be penalized for, but it's more based on either using repetitious keywords or using keywords that aren't appropriate. If you don't photograph anyone with their clothes off, you should never have nude photos in your keywords. That would be considered spamming because it's a highly searched term that doesn't apply to your website. On the other hand, you don't need wedding photography Sacramento, wedding photographer Sacramento, wedding photographers Sacramento. You need to pick one and stick with it. Now, generally those are interchangeable in your keywords. Okay, don't have any more questions that I see. Oh, wait, here we go. Should you use a period when using a city in your metadata? You should not. If it's a St. Louis, St. Petersburg, just do ST. Quite often, it's kind of funny, even if someone uses ST period Petersburg in their search, Google will disregard that period, and it will just be ST Petersburg. So even if it's an abbreviation, don't put the period. If you're doing New York, New York, it would be New York in Y, not New York, comma, in period Y period. Okay, I'm going to give it one more minute. Any last minute questions? All right, we're going to wrap it up for today. Please don't forget, you can always call into our passionate support to talk about anything we have discussed today. And this webinar will be available shortly. Give us a few days. It takes a while to get these converted and uploaded, but it will be available on our YouTube page, youtube.com/photobiz.
Well, thank you, everyone, for all the great questions, and thank you so much, Andy, for taking the time to talk with us today about SEO. as Andy mentioned, the recording of today's webinar will be posted on the PhotoBiz YouTube channel at youtube.com/photobiz. Also, be sure to check our blog and watch your email for updates about future webinars. You can join me next week for our next webinar where I'll be talking about troubleshooting PhotoBiz style, and that'll be on Tuesday, August the 20th. Thanks again, Andy. That concludes this episode of PhotoBiz Live. Have a great day, everyone.